Second. Mr. Sposato. All in favor? Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Good evening. Very quickly, everyone, I believe, is aware, but I will again inform everybody, our curriculums are on the website, and it's very easy to click in and look at the work that our teachers did over the course of the year. And it's a great tool for parents, staff, administrators, and the public. We are having a policy committee next week. Next Wednesday, Mr. Sposato has called that meeting. We have quite a few policies to review. Also, everybody's familiar with the 2 fire drills a month. The State Department of Ed, starting in November, has changed that to 1 fire drill and 1 school security drill each month. So we have certainly been practicing lockdowns, but this is now mandatory that they report to the state each month on our fire drills as well as our school security drills. Several events coming up. On the 27th of October, the State Department of Ed is coming in to meet with the Business Department on ARRA funds. On the 29th, I have Superintendent's Roundtable, where I'm sure we will pick up some very timely information on a few of the initiatives going on in New Jersey. Schools are closed on the 2nd of November for Election Day, and on the 4th and 5th for the New Jersey Education Association Convention. On the 10th, I will be meeting with faculty members, Student Superintendent's Advisory. Mrs. Francioso did chair that. I am taking that over. I've also been contacted by the State Department of Education. We've been selected for an elementary pilot program for eye exams. I'm meeting with representatives on the 17th for details, and our next board meeting is on the 22nd of November. Thank you.
Board Secretary.
As a follow-up to the resolution that was tabled at the last meeting regarding the upgrade of the software for the telephone system and the purchase of a new piece of equipment, a server in particular for this building, I did some outreach and some investigation. I was put in touch with the Assistant Business Administrator/purchasing agent for the Passaic Board of Ed, who is more or less an authority on purchasing laws in New Jersey. He does a lot of presentations and seminars, and he has offered me his assistance. There is a proprietary bid that does need to be put together, so I've been gathering all of the information, and I am meeting with him tomorrow morning to make sure that the bid meets all of our specifications and designs that we need to continue operating the phone system. So that bid will be advertised, and bid results will be brought to the board to award the contract.
Thank you. If you look at the agenda, it says a presentation by Mr. Catchenbaum on the New Jersey Monthly, but I want to skip that. I want to go to committee reports before I get to Mr. Catchenbaum for the presentation. Then we'll go right to the hearing of citizens. So do I have any committee reports from anyone?
Yes, Mr. President, on the health and fitness, we're working closely with the Mayor's office on the health and fitness side of things. We've spoken with the representative from Chartwell's. He's going to be discussing Chartwell's involvement with this project that we're working on with the Mayor's office, looking at some legalities, contractual issues, but I see no obstacles there. And the Mayor's office has worked pretty hard in obtaining a grant for some of the things we want to do in the near future. So hopefully we'll be meeting in a couple of weeks and we'll have something solid for you very shortly.
Mrs. Zara, can you speak to that grant and what the board's input in that grant is?
Yes, the township is applying for a grant on combating childhood obesity. And the grant required 3 partners, and Mountainside Hospital is one, the town itself, and the Nutley Board of Education. We're certainly concerned with the health and welfare of all of our students, and childhood obesity, as everyone recognizes, is becoming a national epidemic. And this would be in the form of educational programs that would be made available to the district to incorporate into our health curriculum.
Thank you. Any other committee reports?
We have a question on the grant.
Sure.
Is there any upfront cost, or is there a matching grant? Or
No, no.
Yes, Mr. Molina.
Regarding the academic committee, I just wanted to preface by saying that working with Principal Katzenbone and Vice Principal Williams has been a breath of fresh air, particularly getting back to the business of academics. And I feel that my fellow board members could attest that we've been sidetracked for way too long. So tonight's presentation, a lot of work went into it, and I am eager to get back to business, or get back to basics. And as on the heels of reinstating the academic committee, I don't think we would have had this in-depth discussion otherwise. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate your kind words, thank you. Mr. Spizzati, you want to tell us what you'll be speaking about at the policy committee meeting next week? What's on the agenda for that meeting?
Okay, at the policy committee, we're meeting with the VA. We're going to go over some standard policies that need to be updated. And with the superintendent, one of the main ones is we'll be discussing the concussion policy. So we'll be discussing on that. Hopefully we'll have quite a few of them to be read in and accepted for our next meeting.
Appreciate that.
And maybe one about cell phones too.
Mr. President,
Yes,
with respect to the Finance Committee, we set a standing meeting on the first Tuesday of the month, which happens to be Election Day next week, so we're going to have to reschedule that. Meeting.
okay. So we'll prepare for rescheduling. I just want to make mention that last week I asked the superintendent to reach out to the superintendents of Belleville and Bloomfield, and in kind for those superintendents to reach out to the presidents of Belleville and Bloomfield, so that the six of us could sit down and discuss the potential possibilities for joint services between the three districts. 100 years ago, this wasn't Nutley, this was Franklin, and Franklin encompassed Belleville, Bloomfield, and Nutley, and then in the early 1900s it broke up into three different towns. So maybe now is the time to begin discussions and dialogue with sharing services, whether it's personnel or telephones or technology or whatever that might be. So hopefully we can meet in the next week or two to discuss the potential of shared services between the three boards of education. On the construction side and facilities side, we have moved past the October 15th deadline for heating all the buildings. We passed that with flying colors. There are no issues with heat in any of the buildings. So all of the new heating systems are operational and functioning properly. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Nicoletti is not here tonight, but from what I understand in emails to me, those heating systems are working. We are finalizing backsplashes at Radcliffe School, and we're still doing cabinetry at Yanaqua. And next summer, we're scheduled to complete the heating system, the secondary heating system at the high school. But the construction is not only on schedule, but according to preliminary reports, and I don't want to jump the gun, but according to what I saw the other day, which we are in the process of analyzing right now, the potential exists, in spite of the fact that we began this referendum with a $1.7 million deficit due to the fact that we had bathrooms done that weren't in the referendum originally. It appears that there will be a surplus in this referendum when it's complete at the end of next year in the high school. So we're going to confirm that shortly, but it's a credit to this board. It's a credit to the construction manager, the architect, and all the professionals that have worked so diligently in bringing this project not only on budget, but under budget, and for nearly a $50 million referendum. It's incredible to sit here, and we're all proud together with the potential that we could actually have a surplus for this budget. So I'll report on that as we move forward with the analysis. I also want to say that I spoke to one of the people involved in what has been newly formed as a safety committee at Radcliffe School as a part of a PTO meeting we had a month and a half ago in that school when we were talking about the stop, drop, and go. As a result of that meeting, they formed the safety committee, and that safety committee has done a walkthrough of that school with the principal, and they'll be reporting back to the board through the principal shortly. But we expect the construction in that facility to be completed in the next 2 weeks. So whatever open items we have at Ratcliffe School, whether it's completion of sealing up the wiring there, or backsplashes, or leaks in the roof, or whatever it may be, we believe that that will be completed in the next 2 weeks. Mr. Viemeister, who's sitting over here, at the request of Mr. Mascaratola, has supplied this board with a budget for security as part of the referendum, and Mr. Mascaratola will speak to it later in the meeting. But he's given us a breakdown of financials on that, as well as a timeline for completion on that project. One of the things that we're talking about with the potential, if there is in fact a realized surplus at the end of the day, we'll be looking at security, we'll be looking at sidewalks, we'll be looking at playgrounds and parking areas, because we're in complete disrepair, whether it's Ratcliffe, Yannicqua, Lincoln, Washington, the high school. We're in need of repair of sidewalks and parking areas in all those areas. So we'll speak to that shortly as well. At this point, I'd like to bring up Mr. Catchabone, the principal of the high school, to refer to his report on New Jersey Monthly. But before we get to Mr. Catchabone, Mr. Reed will introduce the program.
Thank you, President Riley. In regards to the New Jersey Monthly rankings, I just wanted to explain that there are fairly objective criteria that go into the rankings. And with these two slides, we'll see that when I say fairly objective, data for the New Jersey Monthly rankings emanated from the State Department of Education, particularly 2000 and 2009. Where things get a little tricky in terms of the subjectiveness of their rankings is in terms of the weights and how are these categories weighted. And again, we don't have much control over that. But we look at our categories in terms that will be used in the ranking, and this is going to set the tone for Principal Catchabone's presentation. And he's going to fill in the blanks for us regarding the school environment, student performance, and student outcomes. So under the broader category of school environment, we see that the criteria that are embedded within school environment include average class size, student-faculty ratio, student computer ratio, percentage of faculty with advanced degrees, and number of AP tests offered. Regarding student performance, the next overarching category, average combined SAT score, percentage of students showing advanced proficiency on HESPA, and students scoring a 3 or higher on AP tests as a percentage of all juniors and seniors. And last but not least, student outcomes, graduation rate, percentage of graduates going on to post-secondary education, and those going on to a 4-year college, or those going on to a 2-year college or post-secondary school. And as I mentioned earlier, there are going to be certain weights given to each of those categories, and that's going to factor in terms of the rankings. And now, without further ado, Principal Catchabone.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reed, Mr. Riley, Mr. Zara, members of the Board of Education, Madam Business Administrator, families and friends. Appreciate this opportunity to report out academic performance at Nutley High School. This evening, you will hear from, of course, myself, and I will look at the Nutley High School consistent with other F District factor schools, and at the conclusion, recommendations, followed by Mr. Williams, who will report out on HESPA, Guidance Director Mrs. DeVillio, a short overview of SAT scores, as well as AP or advanced placement, and conclusion, Mr. Violante, a few words regarding project acceleration. In addition to these ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Martin, Coordinator of Mathematics, and Mr. Bonus, Coordinator of Language Arts, will be here to field any questions you might have at the conclusion of this presentation. As you all know, last year we reviewed and revised our curriculum consistent with our new core content standards. In addition, in what I describe as a forensic initiative, we studied our standardized test results and made changes and improvements that address the needs of our students. Some of the enhancements included, since last year, greater staff articulation. Within the areas of special education, language, arts, and math, we have identified academic areas of concern, targeted specific classes, explored new instructional strategies, and motivational technique. We've increased communication with the parents to encourage their student, whether regular ed, 504, or special ed, to take all standardized tests seriously and do their very best. Within the limited use of zero period, we have increased the number of students receiving remediation by appealing to our special ed parents the need and worth in attending these classes. Many special ed parents accepted our recommendation. Students sat for the HESPA after several zero period meetings with mathematics teachers. And as you're going to find out a little later on, it's important that they sit. And many special ed students now sit a second time, and this is a very important measure in the AYP cycle, as Mr. Williams will allude to a little later on. And we have improved testing formats and assessments to mirror the HSPA for all grade levels and intensified the instruction for juniors. And when I say that, we abandoned the Terra Nova test, which was our inventory for 9th and 10th grade. We now have New Jersey Pass, which again is set in formatting very similar to that of HESPA. That was an important change that we made. Last year in the springtime, I was here, I told you we saw measurable improvement with last year's HESPA results. Mr. Williams will talk to those points. As we move forward this year, I'm confident we're going to continue to improve. But let me remind everyone, this is a collaborative effort. In order to deliver comprehensive educational programs, as you I'm sure are well aware, we need the full support of our central office, our Board of Education, administration, faculty, teachers, and most importantly, parents and students. With that being said, as Dr. Reed mentioned, the criteria for New Jersey Monthly is threefold. It's school environment, it's school performance, and school outcome. Let me begin by saying Nutley's factor group is F. District factor groups are based on socioeconomics. In New Jersey Monthly, for your edification, Point Pleasant was number 1 in our group, ranking at 58. Collingswood was 267. We are 160. We are 27th out of 43 F factor districts. The background. The criteria, again, first criteria being school environment. Class size is the first measure of school environment. Average class size for secondary schools is based on the total enrollment for each grade divided by the total number of English classes for the same grade. So they're looking at English because it's a state requirement. All students must take 4 years of English. Our class size was 28.6. Comparing that with other F district factor schools, we have the largest classes. We are 43rd out of 43 schools, something that we must, of course, discuss further. And I will say, this has been a superintendent's advisory recommendation for probably 20 years. And the time that I sat on the superintendent's advisory, and the target number that then Diane DeRosa, now that Cindy DeBonis is looking at, as a fair and doable and workable number is 22 max in an English classroom. Student-faculty ratio. The lower the student-faculty ratio, the more individualized the learner and the learning process. The greater the success, differentiation of instruction. All the literature supports this. I've experienced this myself in my classes that I've taught, in particular my AP Government and Politics class. Comparing Nutley with F district factor groups, we were 31 out of 43 schools. 11.8 to 1 is our student-faculty ratio. Moving along, student-computer ratio. This shows the average number of students served by each instructional, multimedia, capable computer. Any computer with a manufactured date after July 1st, 2005. Simply put, this means computers which were 3 years old or less in the start of the year they were counted. The ratio is calculated by dividing the total enrollment by the total number of multimedia capable computers that are used for instruction. Our ratio is 4.5. This was not reported out in New Jersey Monthly. You have to really dig for it in other district report cards. I would say that's high compared to the higher performing F district factor schools. And as you know, with budgeting constraints, 2008-2009, there was a decrease in the number of new computers delivered to the high school. In 2009-10, all computers and technology were cut from the budget, which will impact on our future ratings. However, I do see some improvement this year. Mr. Weimeister is back in that cycle, and I want to thank and note that the Educational Foundation did donate $8,000, which I applied to technology and equipped 6 English classrooms with LCD projectors and screens. The last in the environment criteria, or next to last I should say, is the percentage of faculty with advanced degrees, 59.7. This includes master's or doctoral degrees beyond bachelor's. This number has been decreasing as we see more retirements and have hired new teachers with a standard BA or BS degree. This will impact on our future ratings, and no fault of anyone other than, as you know, we've had a record number of retirements, 08, 09, and 9 and 10, and possibly this year as well. And we are replacing them with new teachers, first, second year of experience with a standard BA or BS degree. Next, the number of AP tests offered. And this number is something we're really proud of. There are 19. This has increased over the years, over the decade really, and we'd like to expand and have more AP tests down the road. And I can name some of them that I'd like to see in each department. However, I'll hold that for another conversation. And this has dropped by 1 right now in the current 2010-11. I can't give you the reasons, but the AP College Board people eliminated the AP Italian examination. So we are operating with 18 AP tests this year with the hope that they would reinstate that for the future, because we do have many students who are sorely missing the Italian 5 level instruction. So as I said, we need to revisit my proposal from 2006 to have a 10-period day, an additional 0 period, and a 9th period to allow for the expansion of the curriculum and a staggered start to the day, early and late start, before homeroom and after homeroom. And please note that over the last 10 years, we have added over 40 new courses across the curriculum. And that's a very significant number. And that's to the credit of the teachers, the credit of the administrators, trying to be contemporary, attending their workshops, seeing what's out there and what other schools are doing and what the current trends are in the education of the nation. Next, the second criteria, student performance. Our SAT combined score in math and critical reading is 1495. We're not happy with that, and we're working really around the clock to pull that up. We believe our students can do much better. What opportunities do the students have at Nutley High School? Princeton Review in the summertime, the last 2 weeks of July, an evening SAT course for students, and that's not mandatory, that's by their own choosing. And then for the athletes and the students with extra responsibility after school, I started a SAT prep 0 period in the morning. So we're giving them the opportunity to come early in the morning and get an SAT prep for free, come in the evening and get an SAT prep for free, or enroll, see Mrs. DeVillio, and enroll in the Princeton Review that we've held now for many years, the last 2 weeks of July. So the opportunity is there. Along the lines of curriculum, all the coordinators are tailoring their curriculums and their assessments to mirror that of the SAT score. I believe in this area we need more in the way of education for the parents. That's something I would like to discuss a little further down the road, maybe at another meeting, as far as having classes for the parents that not only cover the academics, but everything through etiquette, behavior, the issue of bullying, harassment. There's a lot we can do in that area. I'll leave that for another meeting. Advanced proficiency on the HESPA. This is the language. If you could put up the mathematics, thank you. This is the percentage of students showing advanced proficiency on the HESPA. Language is 14%, mathematics is 18%. This is combined regular ed and special ed. Mr. Williams will break this down into regular ed and special ed and show you some of the benchmarks that we've reached regarding regular ed and, of course, the deficiencies with the special ed population, which we'll address a little later on. The number of students scoring 3 or higher on AP tests. At Nutley High School, 60% of all juniors and seniors enrolled in AP scored a 3 or higher. For your information, Point Pleasant, 11 AP courses were offered. 61% scored a 3 or better. Where's the discrepancy? It has a lot to do with the total population of the school, class size, the ratio, and a great deal with the environment across the board. In order to increase the percentage, we need to look at the prerequisites for AP course entry. This is something that I want to revisit. Again, we've talked about it before, and I'll explain further if you have questions about Point Pleasant and my last statement. I'd be glad to elaborate further on it. But here's some of my suggestions with AP. Some schools have an entrance exam selecting a smaller percentage. Some drop the scaling or the weight of the course if you score below a 3 or choose not to take the test, thus getting the most serious and committed students into the program. Most importantly, and we're going to hear from Mr. Violante a little later on, Project Acceleration is now more popular among students and parents than AP. Students can enter into college with credits from Nutley High School's approved instructors, our curriculum, and our assessment. You pay $75 a credit. You don't have to sit for the test. The final exam at Nutley High School is suffice. You score a B or better. You're on the way to college credit, given on a Seton Hall transcript. You'll hear the testimony from Mr. Violante and perhaps some people in the audience as well that have had children go through this process of being enrolled in Project Acceleration. They're entering into Lehigh with a half year under their belt. They're entering into Ramapo College with a year under their belt. They're entering into Seton Hall. It's currently about $1,000 a credit, with anywhere from low-end 15 credits to high-end 35 credits as freshmen. It's a tremendous savings for the parents. Tremendous savings. Tens of thousands of dollars. We have to ask ourselves the question, which is more important here, because we are certainly losing points in this evaluation system. This corresponds with 2002, for those that have questioned the drop-off since 2002. This directly corresponds with 2002 at the suggestion, and it was a good suggestion by then Dr. Vivinetto, and to implement our Project Acceleration program. But I have to tell you, this is very, very popular, and the parents love it. Moving right along. The third criteria, student outcomes. This is a single combined score of graduation rate multiplied by the percentage of graduates going on to post-secondary education. Simply put, the weighting value, 4-year, 2-year, and other post-secondary. They put a weight value of 1.5 on 4-year education. We have 68% of our students attending 4-year schools. 2-year, a weight of 1, 19%. Other post-secondary weights, 0.67, 3%. You total that up, that's 90% of our graduating classes attaining some form of higher education, which is a little higher than the previous decade, where it hovered probably between 83 and 88%. So we have more students now seeking some form of higher education. Also important for me to mention is that Nutley High School's graduation rate for 2008 was 100%. That concludes our New Jersey Monthly. Why have this opportunity? Last week, as you're all aware, this was Anti-Violence Week. We had several programs at Nutley High School. I want you to know that we got a jump start on the whole issue of bullying, harassment, intimidation. We've had 3 successful programs since September 15th. That's all in the first marking period. Dr. Fallon, clinical psychiatrist, Mrs. Casilli, has made the arrangement now for the last several years to bring him in. His theme is, of course, bullying and harassment. We'll go into the detail of the program, followed by Ms. Rubash, Ms. Casilli, and Mr. Capello's, the cyberbullying program held on September 28th. Our GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, have had many programs planned for the year. Last week was their anti-violence candle vigil in the courtyard. To be in compliance with the state mandates, we have to report this out, as you know. Well, there it is. And I want to just, without going into all the detail, if you look at 2009, 2010, you look at fights, harassment, substance possession, substance use, theft, and vandalism. I want to point out that the one issue of substance possession was on my request to bring in the K-9 unit. There was one locker found to be, by the dogs, an individual who was carrying marijuana. And it was processed by us, of course, with the help of the Nutley Police Department. But whether you know it or not, I've asked for K-9 units every other year for the last 5 years, and they've cooperated, helped Mr. Rogers. They have cooperated and have brought that in. We're trying to send a strong message. Fighting, 8 fights, 6 harassments, 1 substance possession, 13 substance uses. That is suspicion-based. We don't report out random drug to the state, although I'll report it out where we are this year in a couple minutes. Thefts, 5, vandalism, 1. Moving to the far right column, 2010-11, the incident type. We've had 1 fight, we've had 4 harassments. And I have to tell you, those harassments are of nature of Facebook, MySpace, are 2 of our biggest culprits, and the other had to do with a gender slur, and the other an ethnic slur. And there we are as of today, October 25th, in the last column. Next. Our random drug and suspicion-based drug testing. In September, total students tested for random 10, total positives 0. For October, total students tested 19, total positive 2. Suspicion-based, September, total students tested 1, total positive 0. October, total students tested 1, total positive. And with the help of our faculty and the in-servicing of Mrs. Casilli, teachers are reporting this to us, and we are very, very concerned about the health and well-being of our students at Nutley High School. And the 2 gentlemen, the 2 individuals that tested positive for random drug testing only recently are now in the process of a meeting with our SAC. They've had their total medical evaluation. They have to submit a second drug screen as part of our policy. And of course, the next step will be for them to be in an early intervention program within the first week of their suspension. And that's going on as we speak. And Mr. Williams and I met with the parents today. And that concludes my talk. If you have any questions, please hold them to the end. I wanted to take this opportunity to report out exactly what we're doing at Nutley High School. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Williams, Vice Principal, who will say a few words regarding HESPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I get to talk about state testing. HESPA High School Proficiency Assessment comes from a long line of attempts to reform public education. The baby boomers in the classroom, in the room tonight, you remember Sputnik. Sputnik brought in a whole wave of math and science reform to the public schools. For those of us who remember the 80s, Nation at Risk was an attempt to bring about voluntary national standards into the math and language curriculum. If you remember, Japan was going to take us over, and we had a change. From that reform era, we do get the NCLB, the No Child Left Behind legislation, in which standard-based reforms have become the norm. This is how we operate. Nation at Risk, leading to NCLB, came pretty much from a review of the other standardized tests, the SATs. It was noted between 1960 and 1980 that there was a decline in the overall scores of the SATs. So it was felt that accountability had to be imputed upon the public school system. So here we are with NCLB and HESPA, the High School Proficiency Assessment. It used to include science. It includes only now math and language arts. This is all changing. The science portion used to be called, as of September of this year, the EOC Bio. Now, October of this year, it's the New Jersey Biology Competency Test. That is a end-of-course assessment. We have EOC Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 on our charts. Some of the students in the middle school are taking end-of-course Algebra 1. It is coming for us Algebra 2 soon in the high school as well. Just for edification, New Jersey is part of the America Diploma Project, in which high schools are 38 states are having their high schools come up with high school exit exams, similar to, but not exactly like the regions in New York. So this is where we're going. This is where we will be. In the future, geometry is coming. A history end of course will be coming, and word out from Trenton is that there will soon be a civics exam at the urging of Governor Christie in place relatively soon. So what does NCLB do? It provides accountability metrics, measurements for how districts are doing vis-a-vis established benchmarks. I'll get to the benchmarks in a moment. The accountability metrics for HESPA are advanced proficiency. Those students who score a 250 or higher on the either math or LAL are considered advanced proficient. Proficient anywhere between 200 and 249. And then partial proficiency would be anybody below a 200. So we work off of that. We have our benchmarks set up for us. If you don't meet your benchmarks, you're not meeting AYP, adequate yearly progress. There are benchmarks for all student subgroups. That means the information is disaggregated data. For the edification of those at hand, when you fill out a pre-ID label for a student, you pass it around if you want to look at it. Title I students, special ed students, LEP, limited English proficiency students, 504 students, students have been in district less than a year or over a year, students have exited LEP programs for less than a year or over a year. All of that is taken into account. So the microscope is on us. The state benchmarks. New Jersey decided to adopt state benchmarks as they were granted this permission by the federal government. Remember back, to get into my history teacher phase, in the Constitution, each colony brought its own ideas of education. When you went through the Constitutional Convention, that right was granted to the states. So really, NCLB had to work around this whole idea that states define what should be education. So they offer money and they suggest benchmarks. This is New Jersey's benchmark. I'd like to point out that our general ed population, both math and language arts, have met or exceeded every benchmark presented up here. Right now, we are in the 2011-2013 phase. The asterisk by 2014, I was notified at the meeting over the summer by state officials that they're not going to require that everyone get 100% proficiency rating. It's a bit pie in the sky to assume that you'll get 100% proficiency rating in a public school. This is just fact. But the accountabilities are what we have to go by. So keeping that in mind, we look at the data that was used. The top one was used for the ranking of the New Jersey Monthly. In that year, you can see for LAL and math what our advanced proficiency ratings were, our proficiency ratings and partial proficiencies. Again, this is general population. You'll notice 2009, 2010, a pretty significant improvement in the advanced proficiency ratings. LAL and math both went up. So we're looking at the data. It's data analysis. It's data driven. We're looking at it, and as Mr. Cacciabon alluded to, it's an ongoing process. All our department chairs are vested in this process, and you don't want to come out and say, yes, we are teaching for the test, but you want to kind of master those skills and get the skills that these kids need to know and have to have a fighting chance to do well on the HESPA. That is what is being taught. I'll next report out on this special ed population demographic. This is where we are not meeting adequate yearly progress, or AYP. If you'll notice, there is no advanced proficiency in either year. That is aggregated back into your general facts. That is what will go. So if you have for instance, in 2008, you had, I believe, a 16% for LAL. That's going to go down to 14% when you factor in that 0 for the special ed subgroup, and that's what happened. I would like to point out the great strides made in both areas, but more significantly in language arts. Toby Dambola, who spoke last year on this matter, was very well vested in this process, and he passed on his knowledge to Ms. Martin. Mr. Bonus is to be commended for the strenuous effort she's put forth with the LAL teachers. Our proficiency rating for special ed students skyrocketed. And we, in fact, will meet Safe Harbor and AYP once the cycle is counted out. There's 3 attempts you have to pass the HESPA. The problem here for us is quite simple. You have conflicting federal policy. You have the IDEA, which basically brought about special ed and IEPs, all worthwhile stuff for those who have learning disabilities. This is now counteracted with the NCLB legislation, which says everybody must reach a certain level. In the IDEA, with your IEPs, you can have, if you see the thing being passed around there, the answer folder, there's a mark-off for the special ed IEP section, meaning you're exempt from passing. That has kind of been built up into our culture, and we need to change that culture of expectation. You can be exempt from passing, but we have to, and we are working on this, changing the expectation levels of parent and student to try their best, to try to give a good, honest effort. I would like to see a percentage reported out in advanced proficiency in math and language arts from the special ed population. I don't think it's unattainable, but we do have to have a culture change of expectation. When I first took the testing coordinator's job a few years ago, it was a one-and-done process. They took it, they sat once, and that was it, and it was forgotten about. That was killing us, in plain English. I talked to a bunch of state officials over the summer. They said, yeah, it's a difficult situation. You're going through IDEA and AYP competing government programs, but you have to try to get them to sit the second time. We've experimented with that with this October, just past HESPA, and we're going to continue to move forward to try to get these students to do the best and to receive a proficiency at least rating. We do want to target inclusion students. We feel that's where we can make our strongest gain. We've seen these gains in English already, language arts, literacy. I'd like to see it go up in math. We need to continue to realign our special ed math and language arts curricula. That is an ongoing process which we are doing. And we really need from district-wide on down a continued professional development for staff for self-contained instructional purposes. Regarding the advanced proficiency increases, trying to get that for this NJ Monthly thing, there is an increased academic rigor across both curricula. This is ongoing, and this is going to be one of my things I'd like to see happen, along with Ms. Couchbone and department chair people, is that we're making it more rigorous with our instructional time and our expectation levels across the student continuum. With HESPA specifically, we are making a conservative review of HESPA in the higher math classes. Anecdotally, with Toby Dembola, we did surveys of these students in the higher math classes, and they basically said, yeah, we did what we had to do, but we didn't really take it too seriously. So we need to try to change that attitude from the top achievers who can do probably the better job of getting our advanced proficiency ratings up. So it's an ongoing process. It doesn't end. We are fighting for the students, and we're looking to put together anything to increase student achievement. Okay?
Thanks, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Mr. Villio, SAT and AP.
With the SAT results, we usually report out, and on our school profile gets sent out with all our transcripts, we always report the 75th, 50th, and 25th percentile. And this shows the average SAT in those groups. In the past few years, there's been a growing number of students that are in our lower decile, and that 10th decile, and that bottom 10% of the class, that are attempting to take the SAT, which is positive in the sense that it's a cultural change and they're looking to excel and succeed, and they're looking to see if they can take the SAT and perform well enough, perhaps at a two-year college, they can test out of some of the remedial courses. With the changes that are going on with math and language arts currently with Ms. Bonus and Ms. Martin, the changes in the classroom will eventually have a trickle-down effect on this part of the population that's taking the SAT. But in the past, these students are taking it, they want to take it, they want to do well, but they're not putting as much time and effort into the SAT prep. And that is a big difference. Students that just take, well, I'm going to go to Bergen Community, I'm just going to take it and see how I do. They don't take an SAT review class, whether it's through Princeton Review, through our morning class, or our evening class. So taking the SAT without any preparation, your chances of performing well are not very strong, and that's a cultural change. We're glad to see that they want to take it, but they have to do the prep work in order to take the SAT, whether it's on their own or through an organized class. And the classes that Mr. Couchbone mentioned earlier are definitely providing great service to our students. The one thing that is disappointing is that when the evening class is begun, we start off with 40, 50 students, and then by the second or third week, we're down to 20. So that follow-through isn't there. And again, it's a cultural change of starting something, sticking to it, and really making sure they're following through to see their gains on the SATs. And it starts in the classroom, and then it extends into the evening classes and the morning classes as well. When it comes to the AP, in 2008-2009, we had 183 students enrolled in over 370 classes. Some students enrolled in one class. I believe there were 86 students that had one AP course that year, and then there were actually 4 students that had 6 AP courses. So that's a big range. The students that are taking one AP class are looking just to get that one AP on their transcript because they want to impress the colleges and show that in the end they really challenged themselves. Many of them have no intent or have no intention of actually taking the AP exam. They're building their transcript. The students that are taking 6 may be going pre-med or bio or engineering, and they have the AP bio, they have the AP Chem, they have the AP calculus courses, but they also have the AP history and the AP English. When it comes to those students, taking the AP in their intended subject area is not beneficial to them. Testing out and getting the AP credit means that they're not getting that intro bio course at the college level. If you're going to go a pre-med program, you're doing yourself a disservice, and the colleges will tell the students the same thing. So those students that are taking 6 AP courses may only be taking the history and English, or the English and the language, because they're going into engineering. And it's not going to benefit them to take the AP exam. What is helping them is taking the AP class to get that foundation of knowledge that will help them do better when they do take that college level course in their specific subject area. Out of the 55 students that took it, they took 95 AP exams. 64 students, or 64 tests, or 67% scored a 3 or higher. And the breakdown was 20 students scored a 5, 22 scored a 4, 22 scored a 3, 22 scored a 2, and 9 scored a 1. Now again, If they had pushed themselves a little bit harder, were vested in taking the AP exam, maybe not taking that course just to build their transcript, those 22 students in that 2 category, it's very possible they could have passed with a 3. Just today, I was on a counselor tour at Quinnipiac, and I spoke to counselors at Glen Ridge, Glen Rock, and Leone. Glen Ridge, when they sign up for SAT course or AP courses, they're enrolled and they're committed to taking the AP exam, and the parents have to put that $86 fit. If they don't take the AP exam at the end of the year, they change their transcript and they give them honors credit. So when their reports are coming out, instead of having 373 enrollments in these classes, let's say 100 students choose not to take those AP exams. Well, now their AP enrollment drops down to 273, and all 273 are taking it, because if they don't take that exam, that AP distinction is taken off their transcripts. Glen Rock has an assessment. You can't go into an AP exam without taking a test and having your SAT scores reviewed by the teacher themselves. So by making the classes more stringent, or getting into the classes more stringent, some of these schools perhaps are getting a better ratio of students enrolled to students taking, and as well as students taking and performing 3s, 4s, and 5s. And again, it's a cultural change. It's what do we want to do with the district that's going to change our statistics. The other big factor is Project Acceleration. And we had 183 students enrolled, 55 sat for the AP, but 111 took Project Acceleration credits. 2 Wednesdays ago, we had a college admissions panel at high school, and Peter Rice from Ramapo. It was the perfect question, and I wish perhaps some of the board members could have heard his answer. And I looked at Mr. Cashman when he was answering a parent question, and I said, this is just the perfect answer. A parent asked, what's the benefit? Is it better for their child to take the AP or the Project Acceleration for Seton Hall? And he said, the Project Acceleration is a guaranteed credit. Students come into Ramapo with sometimes 22 credits, and they're already a sophomore. 2 excellent examples. Just last week on Thursday, Dennis Atlick, who actually used to record the board meetings about 3 years ago, he came in to visit, and I asked him, I said, oh, how you doing? How's college? You're a senior, right? He said, no, I graduated early. I said, how did you do that? He said, well, I graduated in 3 years because I went down to Miami with 18 Project Acceleration credits. Not AP, Project Acceleration. He worked through 2 summers, and he graduated a full year early. And that's a wonderful benefit to the student and to the families, especially when it comes to the cost of college these days. And then another student that I know, she graduated from Marist. It took her the full 4 years, but she was able to spend a whole semester abroad without taking courses, because at the end of her freshman year, she was a 2nd semester sophomore. So you have to weigh the benefits of taking the AP exam with Project Acceleration. And I don't want to step on Mr. Violante's toes, because I know he has quite a lot to give you information on Project Acceleration for the family. Thank you.
Mr. Violante will briefly give us an overview regarding Project Acceleration. Mr. Violante has coordinated this for the district over the last probably 7 or 8 years.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. Project Acceleration, also known as a concurrent program within the College of Arts and Science at CBO University, enables students to get a head start on their university careers as they complete their high school courses. Students participating in the program encourages them to make an early commitment to their continued education. Project Accelerations provides students with opportunity to gain confidence in their ability to handle university-level coursework in the familiar environment of their high school with the teachers they know, trust, and respect. They're able to graduate earlier from college, and they have access to Seton University Walsh Library and all its resources on campus and online. Over the course of their junior and senior years, students can earn up to 22 credits from Seton University for approved courses taken at the high school and earn a B or better to have the credits transferred. For the seniors, will also be an antidote for the old malaise known as senioritis. Subjects include AP Calculus, AP US History 2, AP Biology, AP Physics, AP Chemistry, AP Economics, English 4 honors, AP Latin, AP Italian, AP French, AP Spanish, AP, Italian 5 honors, Spanish 4 honors, French 4 honors, Latin 4 honors, AP Government and Politics, and Human Anatomy and Physiology honors. The credits earned through project accelerations are accepted at more than 250 colleges and universities. The credits are used towards electives. I informed the students that if they intend to major in biology, for example, not to sign up for those courses, that they may be considered as a major in college, as the colleges may want them to attend those courses in their major to be taken in their college. That goes also for the AP, just Mr. Gilliam said. The college may not accept the credits towards their major. How doesn't a high school course become a project acceleration credit? A course curriculum detailing the course objectives, textbooks, reading schedule, writing assignments, lab experiments, evaluation procedures, and grading policy is submitted along with the teacher's resume and credentials to the project acceleration coordinator. Teachers must have a master's degree in the field. They are considered adjunct professors of Seton University. You gotta pay. After an initial review, the materials are sent to Project Acceleration Liaison in the appropriate academic department at Seton University. When the course is approved, it will be given a Seton Hall course and name and number to be used for registration. A few years ago, we were having problems getting AP Biology. Some of you may remember that. Approved. The reasons was the labs were not updated and textbooks were too old. We now have new labs and updated textbooks, and they approved the AP Biology. Next one. The number of students who have participated in Project Acceleration over the 10 years. I went back as far as 2003, 2004, 196 students. 2004, 5, 203, and 2005, 06, 299, 06, 07, 203, 07, 8, 131, 8, 9, 111, 9, 10, 121, and presently for the fall only 55 so far. We also registered them for the spring semesters. As you know, college goes spring, fall and spring. I suppose that one of the reasons may be the economics for the drop. Another very important factor is that we have a very young staff. Those who retired have a master's degree. New teachers have a BA and do not qualify to teach Project Acceleration. They do qualify for our school, but not for Seton. Seton University requires that teachers must have a master's degree in the field that they teach, not in education. I have to add that many parents contacted me to thank me over the years for offering this fabulous program, because their children were able to graduate colleges in 3.5 years and some in 3 years, and were able to concentrate on their majors, and some of them saved over $20,000 in some private schools, like Lehigh. After saving so much money, my question is this: do you think that these parents really care whether we make New Jersey monthly or not? I think it's economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Violante. And just in closing, I just wanted to respectfully suggest 3 or 4 recommendations.
Mr. Cashman, with all due respect, before you close,
Yes,
can you
sir.
speak to Mr. Ackerman in regards to computer applications,
Okay.
since we're talking about?
My first recommendation ties into the point regarding computer applications. Maybe we'll use that as a segue with your permission. Restructuring the school day to include 10 periods. This is a must. 0 period through 9th period, 7:23 to 3:30 p.m. This will enable us to provide for remediation classes, expand our course offerings, and decrease the number of conflicts in scheduling. We want to talk computer applications. Let me just say this as the principal, and then I'll turn this over to Mr. Ackerman. We've had this discussion many times over the last decade regarding computer applications. It has evolved from keyboarding into a true computer applications class. If you look at the curriculum and you break it down, Microsoft skills, database management, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, these are all skills that every ninth grader should master. Across the board, across the curriculum, these are skills they're going to have to employ in math, in science, in English, and in social studies. If you're not on your way to a four-year school, if you're going to the world of work, you're going to be tested on these skills. We would be delinquent as a district if we deleted computer applications as a local requirement. With that being said, Mr. Ackerman, please.
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Katzenbaum stated, we believe computer applications to be a very important component of our school curriculum. Mastery or a thorough understanding of technological literacy is a necessary skill needed by all people in this day and age. Children play with computers at a very early age. Although students are familiar with computers, we find that they have difficulty choosing and using the correct software programs when instructions are given in a narrative form. We not only introduce these necessary software programs and utilize drills to build proficiency, but we instruct them on when to use Access versus Excel and how to correctly use Word. Students have difficulty working independently unless given step-by-step instruction. They need organization and they need to develop critical thinking skills. Today, teachers expect students to be able to put together and present a PowerPoint presentation. As part of computer applications, we instruct students on proper modern language association formatting. All teachers should insist that students utilize MLA when formatting, when completing any kind of research paper. I've asked recruiters what they look for when they look at job applicants. They say they're looking for students who have a basic competency with computer programs that they are likely to use in the workplace, such as Microsoft Word, Excel, Access, and PowerPoint. Most employers test new applicants on how good their software skills are with tests such as Skills Assessment Manager. The more comfortable and confident a student is with technology, the easier it is to make the transition into the workplace. We think of technology as a tool, not a toy. A high score on a game does not mean computer competence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And appreciate staff coming tonight to present that to the board. Mr. Russo, do you have any questions on anything that's been presented tonight to the board?
I actually did. Mr. Zara, when I spoke to you last Thursday, you said there was going to be no discussion this evening on computer applications.
That was my understanding. We were talking about New Jersey Monthly and all of the factors that go into New Jersey Monthly and the rankings.
And they rank computer applications?
No, I'm telling you, I did not expect that.
Okay. Well, I'm unprepared to respond to that at
Okay,
this
so
time,
you
but
can
I'd like to reserve that for
put
another
your
time.
questions together for the next meeting, Philip.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Muscat. Mr. Sauter.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Go ahead, please.
Could you tell me the background and credentials of the New Jersey Monthly people that do this evaluation? Does anybody know anything about that?
My research,
Yeah.
editors of a magazine.
They have no educational background of any sort that we know of?
That we know of. What happens is they use the school report card. The data is gathered by the Monmouth Institute and shared with New Jersey Monthly Magazine.
The Monmouth Institute being what?
It's a group affiliated with Monmouth University, like the Monmouth Government Institute is another.
But they only supply the data, they don't do the analysis of the data?
Correct.
So in other words, they give the data to New Jersey Magazine and then they play around with it, come up with their evaluation?
Exactly right.
I see. Well, I have to say, my own personal opinion, I really refuse to become hysterical about our rating dropping to 161. I'm not really happy about it, but I don't think it's really important, because we're having an evaluation from people that I don't think are necessarily qualified to give us that evaluation. And from what you've shown me here, it seems like it's all been done by remote control. In other words, at a distance. I was in a high school for almost 40 years. I never remember anybody from New Jersey Magazine coming to the school to look at it. I don't know how you can really evaluate a situation without actually seeing it firsthand. By contrast, we were evaluated numerous times and still evaluated by middle states and always got a very good ranking. And I would certainly have to give that a lot more credibility because this is done by people that are in education and have credentials relating to education. So, as I say, I'm not happy about being 161 as opposed to 71, but I don't think we should become hysterical about it either. I have some other questions too, but they're kind of minor compared to that. You said that the No Child Left Behind, if you got 250, then you were considered advanced proficiency? 250 out of how much?
300.
Out of 300.
Sorry, I should have.
Additionally, can I ask you about English classes, Mr. Bones? Are English classes now kind of slanted towards grammar and vocab as opposed to literature? Because I know I don't know because I never taught the class, but I think in the past we were kind of pretty much wrapped up with literature and didn't give a whole lot of credence to grammar and vocabulary, which are important factors on the SAT. Has that changed?
Yes, it has.
Great.
We have vocabulary and context, so therefore we are always teaching vocabulary as it relates to the literature we're studying.
And grammar.
And in addition to that, we're now doing what we call the daily sentence. We start every day with the sentence in every classroom. And the kids have to edit the sentence, come up with the answers, and at the end of the week we do a paragraph with those same mistakes. And there are other teachers that are doing other forms of grammar as well, but that was a push that we've been doing the last few years. We did it for a long time and then got away from it, but we're actually starting the year now with a packet on the parts of speech. We do that for the first 2 weeks of school in all grade levels, English 1 through 4.
Great. And you tell me you diagram the sentence too?
Well, I must tell you that diagramming sentences, some of our young teachers don't even know what you're talking about.
Well,
So.
it would be good if they did.
Although I must tell you, it works.
It would be very good if they did.
It does work. And many of the young teachers have asked the veteran teachers, I don't want to call them old, but the veteran teachers, many of the younger teachers have actually gone and sat with them to learn how to diagram. It does work.
Of course it works.
It does work.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
A couple of comments. Extraordinary report. Extraordinary.
Excuse me, yeah, let me add that too. I think you did a great job.
And I'll echo what my colleague, Mr. Sauter, said. A lot of people get excited over what the press does, what editors do. And tonight we heard from the professionals. We heard from the people in the trenches who do the hard work, who are here the long hours. And we have reason to be excited tonight because what I saw here was progress. I saw hard-working teachers and administrators and staff putting a package together that says to us, you know what, things aren't that bad. The sky isn't falling. We're making progress. We're doing great things in this district. So I would say, you know what, I'm really happy to be here tonight to see what you shared with us. But there's one thing I will pass on to my colleague, Dr. Reed, and we've talked about this. They did their job. They did their job diligently, they did their homework, and they shared with us tonight some of the reasons why we might find ourselves where we are today. But we need to do ours as a school board. You, Mr. Katzenbaum, talked about a collaborative effort tonight. You're right. We have this educational foundation that Mrs. Alamo has headed up. Extraordinary work they do to provide our school district with some of the things we need. Our PTOs, extraordinary, supplying smart boards and other supplies that we need. And I could go on and on about the organizations in town, but I would say, Dr. Reed, if we could get that collaborative effort together, and Mr. President, if we could do something that you said when you took office, you said this, academics would become a priority perhaps tonight with all this construction behind us. We could zero in like a laser beam. I think George Bush once said that. on academics and really provide for you and your staff what you need. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Ketchum and the staff for an excellent presentation. Without passing judgment on whether the New Jersey Monthly scoring is good or bad or indifferent, I think that the process of going through the metrics that they provide, I think has been very helpful, and it points out the areas where we should have to drill down into and come up with action plans so that we can improve the education process for our students. And again, I'm not going to pass judgment on the New Jersey Monthly, whether it's good or bad, but I do think that there are areas in here where it uncovers deficiencies, where, again, a collaborative effort for the board. I mean, our job is to provide them with resources, and yours is to utilize those resources. And I think that prioritizing what are the most important things and how do we have to refocus resources which are fixed. This goes a good step in that direction. I'd like to thank you for that. And one question would be, at the top of your, we talked a little bit, some about special ed and the IEPs and the need to change the direction of how we motivate, do some of the motivation. Is that one area, I think that, would that be at the top of your list to address?
Yes, it is on the top of the list. I would make the recommendation that we have a full-time director of special services with, working in tandem with a coordinator of special education. We have subject area coordinators sitting behind me. This is the only area without a subject area coordinator, or someone who's going to oversee three things: curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and focus on that and stay with that each and every day. That's a #1 priority. Full-time director of special services and a coordinator of special ed whose sole responsibility is curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Spezzano.
Okay, a couple questions. The SATs, do we have special ed students taking SATs?
Yes.
Yes.
And is there a reason for that?
We don't discourage anybody from taking it because it's their choice. Just like, any other decision they want to make, we encourage them to do what's appropriate for their education. Not every family listens to the guidance counselors. We often tell them that going into a two-year college, we often recommend they focus on the AccuPlacer, and which is also a test given by College Board that helps them be placed appropriately at the college level. We tell them they should invest their time and money and efforts into the AccuPlacer, because if they do well in the AccuPlacer, they won't be placed in the remedial English or the math class, and won't have to pay for those courses at the college level, which then don't count for their degree. But they still want to try and take the SAT, and it's their right to do so.
How about, do we have a stat on how many students actually take the SATs that do not attend college? I mean, does
Four-year
everyone-
college?
College, I guess, or 4-year or period?
I could get it. It would take some time and effort, but it's not something that College Board does for us. It would be looking at, through Naviance, looking at where students went and who took it and who didn't take it. It would take time, but I could get it.
If you could get that and give it to Mr. Catchman, we'd appreciate it.
My other comment I'd like to make is, I guess, would be, being chair of policy, I'd like to sit down and maybe we can figure out if we need to change some policy. You said what Glen Ridge and some of these other schools have regarding taking these APs, which should be required. Maybe we need to make ours a little tighter,
There's
or
a lot
make
of
them a little
schools
bit
that
where
do-
it's gonna work.
There's different districts that do a wide array of things, so it's a matter
But
of what's good for our district and what we want to move. The other aspect of the SAT, which I forgot earlier, is we have more and more students taking the ACT now, which is not a statistic in New Jersey Monthly.
So maybe
It's
Mr.
an
Patrick,
alternative
we could
exam.
set up a meeting. I'd like to sit and see if there's something in policy that we can do to help address that.
And I've made the recommendation, speaking with Dr. Reed, which I appreciate, Mr. Kuka, on academics, that we meet a minimum of twice a month, minimum, to discuss these type of topics.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Reed?
First and foremost, I would like to extend my appreciation to Principal Katzenbaum and his staff for an extremely enlightening presentation and shedding much needed light on a critical issue, that being improving academic achievement and moving our district forward. That being said, regarding your policy recommendations, I didn't want to cut you short. I have a few more that you want to put up on the PowerPoint. But working closely with Trustee Sposato and Trustee Rogers, we need to move these policy recommendations forward immediately. Again, New Jersey Monthly is not the be-all and the end-all, and looking at more objective criteria that's embedded within those rankings, particularly New Jersey's report card. And I think that regarding AYP and so forth is an area that needs immediate attention. And as you alluded to earlier, special ed, the desperate need to move forward with a permanent director for special services, along with that coordinator recommendation. And that, again, I don't want to see us failing as a board and not meeting those demands. So whatever you need from us, you have an ally, myself, and our colleagues here on the board, and whatever you need to do to move this issue forward, you have my support, my full support.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Cacciabone. And just as an aside, my colleague, Mr. Rogers, obviously, we have focused, and I know he understands this, but I'll just reiterate, we have had a dramatic focus on academics. As a matter of fact, we formed, after 2 years of having them, a brand new academic and technology committee. And we've been working diligently with the superintendent and with the principals, along with a totally new curriculum for the district on trying to advance our new agenda. And I would say that myself, Mr. Bones, Mr. Cacciabone, and Mr. Zara have spoken many times over the last few months about changing the culture of Nutley, changing the culture of and the mindset of parents, of staff, and of this Board of Education. And the old way that we used to do things is no longer good enough. And we are going to change the culture, and it is going to take time. And the special ed component is just one component involved in changing that and getting to the parents and letting the parents know that these kids really will benefit by taking these tests instead of opting out of taking a test, because right now it's the policy that you can opt out of taking a test. So we speak probably more than once a day about technology, about special ed, about academics, and we do definitely take it seriously. So I appreciate everyone's input tonight on this program, and I think it was beneficial to the district, and we appreciate it. Thank you for tremendous preparation.
One question?
Sure.
Failed to ask.
Please
Could you tell me the percentage of students that are enrolled in special ed at our school?
I think we have,
Right.
Like
I think we
10%
have
per
over,
class.
I think we have over 700 as a district.
Well, percentage-wise,
It's
they-
about 10% per class, that comes in roughly around 200.
so we're about 10%?
Yeah.
What is it statewide, pretty much, do you know?
It could be 10 to 12.
Yeah,
12?
I would say 10 to 12%.
So we're not overly enrolled or
I don't
under?
believe so, no.
About right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also, since Mrs. Quirk is standing here and she sent me an email about staffing, we're constantly acutely aware of our staffing requirements and mandates when it comes to special education, and whether it's elementary or high school or middle school, making sure that we have the correct staffing needs. And I'm not making excuses when I say this, Mrs. Quirk, but it's, as you know, it's a moving target. We get students that come and go all the time, and we base our staff based on that moving target. I will say, since it was brought up, that obviously we are going to have a full-time director of special education. Temporarily, we have an interim director of special ed, but that position will be filled this year, as well as hopefully a curriculum director. So that's one thing that we're working on and we speak about on a regular basis. So we'll be moving that forward shortly, and obviously we're in a position that we've never been in before. We're in a position where we're about to have a new superintendent. Assistant superintendent has resigned. That position is not going to be filled again by an assistant superintendent. We have a director of special services that decided to move on to Caldwell. We wish him luck. I hear he's doing well there from what I hear from the superintendent of Caldwell, and we wish him well. But we are moving forward as a board, and we'll take all those issues under consideration. So now we're going to move on to our first hearing of the citizens. Yeah, if someone from the staff can stay, it doesn't have to be everyone, but if, I don't know if it's Mr. Couchman wants to stay in case there's any questions later on in the second hearing of the citizens after we read the resolutions. We appreciate that. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. The regulations allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes. We ask that you stay within the requirement. Speakers may speak more than once, only after all others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as chair. No one may address the board members individually. Please remind yourselves that your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, redundant. Your participation will be terminated. Please state your name and address when you come to the microphone. Anyone wish to be heard on resolution items only this evening? Mr. Thomas? I wish you could have a seat, but asking you one more time. Seeing none,
Hang on.
we'll move on. Please, somebody say something. Mr. Rogers, would you please move resolutions of the superintendent 1 through 16 as listed, please?
Yes, I move superintendent's resolutions 1 through 16.
Second, Mr. Cook. Any discussion? Mrs. Russo.
Yes, can we have discussion on number 16, Essex County Vocational School?
Go ahead, please discuss.
What are the criteria for determining which students can attend that school? I see we have special ed and regular ed students going there.
Yes.
Mrs.
Is that
Zara?
open to all of our students?
Yes, that is open to any student who has a desire to attend a vocational school. The vocational schools in Essex County are open to all Essex County students. There is a very reasonable tuition attached to that. And those schools have two components, a regular ed and a special ed. And if you look on page 5 on my resolutions, those are 9 part-time students who go to Nutley High School half-time and then the vocational school half-time. And then the following page, those are 4-time regular ed students. Again, same situation, having their academics at the high school and then traveling to the Essex County Vocational School for their vocational component. And we've been doing that as far back as I can remember.
Is that cost taken by the board?
Yes, that's a tuition that we pay.
So that is open to any student that's in
Any student who
That's
desires.
correct. For example, if a student decides they want to attend a culinary program at Essex County VOTEC, which is a fabulous program, we're obligated to oblige them. So that, as Mr. Zara appropriately stated, they would come here for the first half of the year, hop on the bus, and go to VOTEC for that component, whether it's a shop class or a cooking class, whatever that may be. That's what the VOTEC is there for.
We've had very few students attend there full-time. I believe it's because they don't want to lose touch with their community and the school, but they do have the best of both worlds, high school for their academics and vocational setting.
And they have an outstanding program. Anyone else wish to be heard on superintendent's resolution? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Mascartola?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Sauter?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes, Mrs. Russo, would you please be kind enough to move Board Secretary BA resolutions 1 through 17 as listed, please?
Yes, I'd like to move BA resolutions 1.
Hold on, please, I'm sorry to interrupt. I forgot. Could you make the correction? If everybody would make this correction to BA resolution number 17, except for the donation, exception of donation, it's supposed to read 2,550 instead of 2,000 for the smart boards. Go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, I'd like to move BA resolutions 1 through 17 as listed. I so move.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Sposato, obviously, as part of the discussion, we certainly appreciate the PTOs and what they do for this town. They're really a special group of men and women in fundraisers at all these schools. They do just an outstanding job, and this is a manifestation of their incredible efforts on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. Anyone else wish to be heard on discussing these resolutions?
Yes, Mr. President, I have one.
Yes, Mr. Rogers.
Page 34 of 36, Verizon Wireless district-wide cell phone. Now, I know we handed, it's understood that a number of members of the staff handed their cell phones in. So we're paying $2,772. Is this for other cell phones, or are these for the cell phones that were handed in?
These are for the cell phone. These are for the cell phones that are still in the district. Most of them are used by the transportation bus drivers, as well as the maintenance and custodial staff, and administrators who did retain their phones. And the bills are reviewed on a monthly basis.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Mrs. Russo?
Item number 7, approval of field trips. I see here we're approving a field trip that should have occurred today. Is that correct? Or is
Which
that
field trip would that be, Mrs. Russo?
Lincoln School and 25 Sun High Orchard.
Mr. Zara, can you speak to that? Appendix G.
I have,
Not that one.
oh, I'm sorry. I can't explain why that's on there. It should have been there earlier. Mrs. Palestina is a part-time teacher, but that has no impact on that. I certainly will look into it.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Sauter?
Yeah, I have a question a general question pertaining to Appendix A, debt service funds. We have bonds, obviously.
What resolution does that refer to, Mr. Sauter? Specifically? What resolution? Can you let us know, please, so we can follow along with it?
Well, it's a general question.
But it has to refer to a...
Secretary
It has to
Bond,
refer to-
Treasurer Report.
Maybe 12?
Okay.
That
Board
possible?
Secretary, Resolution number 1, Secretary Treasurer's Report, is that it, Mrs. Yam?
Appendix A.
Appendix A, from
What?
Resolution number 1. Okay.
Number 1.
Now that we're there, go ahead.
It says debt service funds. We obviously have bonds for the referendum. Do they have a call picture on them? Because I wonder if we could get a better rate at this point in time, because rates are pretty low in new bonds.
They were put out for, I'm not sure, I believe it was about 25 years, the bonds. I have to go back and look at the original documentation.
But what's the call on them?
I can research that for you and get back to you.
And would it be logical to maybe seek a lower rate by calling them and refunding it? I don't know.
It's worthwhile.
All right.
Any other discussion on resolution? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mrs. Mastrocola? Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes on all but communication bills.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes on all but number 7.
Mr. Sauter?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzata?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Mr. Riley. Mr. Riley, you meant, Madam?
Yeah, Mr. Riley.
I vote in the affirmative. Whereas Mr. Pillay used to say aye. In respect to Mr. Pillay, former board member. Second hearing, in this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. Our regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person is limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to stay within this requirement. And as stated earlier, all directives pertain to the second hearing. Anyone who wishes to be heard, please step to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
You're not allowed to sit down.
Okay. With the microphone?
Sure. Somebody else.
You can pick it up, it's fine, that's fine.
Terry Quirk, 45 Hampton Place, the spokesperson for the Nutley Parent Advocacy Network. Okay, I have 4 things. First of all, I just wanted to respond to a statement that Mr. Spizzato made in regards to learning disabled children with special ed. I just wanted to clarify for the public that there are colleges out there that take IEPs right up into college. So if a kid has an IEP from birth up to college, there are colleges out there that accept them. So possibly that's one of the reasons why kids might be taking or looking into college. Not to say
They
For
need
the
SAT
SATs.
scores.
they may or may not, but they do accept the IEPs.
That's a good point, thank you.
The next item that I have, and I just like to play devil's advocate, and actually Mr. Sposato brought that up at the last meeting in regards to, it's just your notes. It's about vocational schools, and we just talked about that. Mr. Zara, you had said something about students, not many students being, going to these schools, not wanting to leave. Right. And I was just wondering, I know they have a program open to 7th and 8th graders, and I was wondering if you could kind of survey the 7th and 8th grade, instead of sending them off, because they may be too young at that age, but sort of survey the 8th graders and to see if something would be more appropriate for them. Because as much as we want all our kids to go to college, it's not happening for some kids. And some kids actually, they go down that route thinking that they're going to get into college, and it's very disappointing for them, for whatever reason. It's
Okay, we
just
got
not
it.
them. Okay. Number 3, I just have a question about lunch aids. I know we had brought up that question. Were they trained?
We are looking into having individuals who are certified to train them on site.
Oh, good.
Turnkey.
That's better. Okay, thank you. And one more question I have about, I received a phone call about a couple of days ago from one of my NPN fathers, and he has a special ed child in district. And he just wanted to know, he was kind of confused as to exactly what's happening with the Director of Special Services. And he had commented that he didn't even know. Well, actually he did, but he said that there were other parents that weren't even aware of the fact that Mr. Palazzolo had left. But he was wondering if at all possible, if Mr. Monaco, during the time that he's here, could just send a letter out to the parents introducing himself and kind of listing the hours that he's available, just so that they could feel better, not to even say that they're going to be calling him.
No, we can look at that.
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else wish to be heard on any school-related matter?
Good evening, Alan Thomas, 108 McKinley Street. Good evening, Mr. President. Mr. President, I join with you and other board members in thanking Mr. Katzenbaum and his staff for coming and delivering this very impressive report. It's something that those of you who know me, I've been asking for this for many, many years. And clearly what we have here is the start of something that, in my judgment, should have been started long ago. And I'm delighted to see that it's starting now. We have a long road to go, but at least there is identification of areas that need improvement and the beginnings of a plan to address them. And I'm very pleased to see that, as I know the board is.
Appreciate the kind words.
Mr. President, my question is, the project acceleration classes, are those classes the same as the AP classes?
They are the regular ed classes. They are not AP classes. So if someone is taking this U.S. History Honors, that would suffice for project graduation.
But if someone took AP, that would
not, those credits would not be applicable to project acceleration.
Is there a way of making that happen?
I'm not sure. That's an interesting notion.
That's killing two birds with one stone. I don't know that.
They will accept that?
AP is, yes.
AP is
I mentioned it.
applicable. Yes. AP honors or regular education level courses are all applicable to project acceleration, provided the instructor is approved, you have to present the credentials, the curriculum is approved, and textbook.
But may I ask, do we have anybody who's in an AP course that is also in project acceleration?
Yes.
Biology,
It's all upper level,
physics,
primarily.
chemistry,
That's why it draws from the.
Hope that answers
That
your
wasn't
question.
clear to me.
But
That's
that-
why I asked the
Now it's
question. One other thing, Mr. President, if I may, I don't think we should discount, no offense to you, Mr. Sauter, but the Monmouth University Polling Institute actually did the statistical analysis that the New Jersey Monthly then took. And the Monmouth University Polling Institute is sort of like the Eagleton Institute for the PIAC polling. They do statistical analysis, that's what they do. They don't form any judgments, okay? They just tell you what's relevant, what's not relevant from a professional statistician's point of view, okay? Again, the choosing of the criteria is New Jersey's Monthly.
Appreciate that.
but the way it's actually comes
Okay.
out. It was, again, a very extensive report. I have many other questions, Mr. President. I hope you will indulge me perhaps at
I'm
future
indulging.
meetings.
Go ahead.
At future meetings,
Oh,
to
future
be
meetings.
more prepared to
I'd
ask
be
more
happy to do
questions.
that. Anyone else wish to be heard on any school-related matters? Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Maria Alamo, 48 Plymouth Road. I'm here talking on behalf of the Nutley Educational Foundation. At the last meeting, we adopted a meeting schedule where the foundation is going to meet the third Wednesday of every month at the high school library, and we're really encouraging the public and the board, if possible, to attend. As Mr. Katchenboat said, at the close of school last year, we donated $8,000 to technology and language arts. We're working with Mr. Zara and Mr. Katchenboat on other areas that we could be helpful. We donated $5,000 to the elementary schools to be used for technology, and we paid for 3 or 4 security cameras here at the high school. We're really doing wonderful things. We invite everybody's participation. Mr. Kukta is a trustee of the foundation. He's also on the foundation's committee for the beautification of the high school, and I'm sure he'll be reporting on that, and all of you are welcome to please get involved and come to the meeting for it. And at the last meeting, we also talked about parent education, what we can do to help fund that. So Mr. Kukta is also going to be reporting on that. So we're hoping to see some of you at the meeting on the 17th of November. Thank you.
Mrs. Alamo, where is the meeting? The high school?
The high school library.
Thank you, Mrs. Alamo. Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to be heard on any school-related matters?
Do I need that? I don't.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Be more comfortable with that.
Myself, President of the Education Association of Nutley. A serious safety issue has come to pass in the middle school. Talking about the phones on the second floor not working.
Mhm.
Should an intruder enter the building in the middle school tomorrow, there is no way to notify the people on the second floor short of announcing over the PA system that the intruder is in the building, which goes against procedure for when there is an intruder in the building. Should that intruder get to the second floor first, there is no way for the staff on the second floor to let the main office know that there's someone in the building who doesn't belong there. Okay? Short of using cell phones, which, with all due respect to Mr. Sauter, that's not an option. If you have to notify 20 teachers on the second floor, you have to call them all individually on your cell phone. This has to be fixed. I spoke to Ms. James about it, I believe it was the last week in September, and I told her that I had heard that this would not be fixed until the end of October, beginning of November, and she said that's absolutely incorrect. It'll be fixed before then. Well, it was tabled at the last board meeting, okay? According to what you said tonight, it's still not going to be addressed for at least another week, possibly 2, until the next board meeting. This is something that has to be fixed immediately. It's something that, it's a safety issue that just can't be pushed aside. And I understand the board has problems with regard to the company that's doing it, with regard to the equipment, with regard to money, but this is a safety concern that, in my opinion, and I've spoken to the school safety officer, who has said that it is imperative that this be fixed immediately.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Also, one other thing, actually, too. I got reports from a couple people. There was no heat in the high school last week for 2 days, and Radcliffe School also was without heat for a couple of days last week. That's it. Thank you.
Now, where did you gather that information from? Because I was told by the director of those facilities that we didn't have heat in those schools.
I got it from Ms. Cristantello about Radcliffe School.
Okay.
And I got
Are you saying that there was no heat at all in the
No,
school?
we had a sauna in some rooms, and we had cold air blowing in others.
Okay. And you reported that to the principal? Did the principal report it to the superintendent?
Perhaps to Mrs. Higgins?
No.
I didn't get that.
And I heard it from Mrs. Giaffi in the high school, and spoke to another high school teacher today, that there was no heat. I called Mr. Catchbone on Friday, and he said he hadn't heard anything about it.
I just find it interesting that you heard about it, but the people who are in charge of the buildings didn't hear about it. There's a breakdown there somewhere.
Okay.
So we need,
Well, when I
we
mentioned,
certainly need to correct the breakdown.
when I mentioned to Mrs. Giaffi that, you know, Mr. Catchbone pointed out that he wasn't aware of it, she said teachers were walking around the building with their coats on.
Okay, and the fact that we have a sauna in some rooms at Radcliffe and cold air burning is a concern of mine as well. So we'll get to, and the director of facilities is not here tonight, but we'll certainly look at that in the morning. Certainly contrary to every report I have ever received from anybody having to do with, because I've called Mr. Nicoletti every day since October 15th, when he was supposed to be turned on, and I was promised that there was heat in the building. Now, why we wouldn't have it in the high school, I mean, we're working in the high school, we didn't even move to the new system yet, we're still on the old system. So how we could have no heat defies logic, that defies logic and common sense. And who reported that to you?
That was Mrs. Chiaffi, and another teacher told me at the rep council meeting this afternoon.
And Mrs. Chiaffi is across the hall from
Yes,
you?
she's a nurse.
She's never reported that to you?
Never reported it to me.
So,
I did talk with Mr. Nicoletti.
You could certainly speak to Mrs. Chiaffi
After the
tomorrow.
phone message from Mr. Stoppers, and he said that he did check out the temperatures and did a spot check in several rooms, starting with the third, and he found no classroom, the temperature under 68 degrees.
Okay. And that's
And
within,
today-
that's within the,
Well, today it wouldn't be on, it was too hot.
But I still think
It was on today.
it was on today, and it was blasting today.
okay, we'll get to that. I appreciate your report to the service.
Of course. Hey, you want the heat on today.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Beautiful day today, thank goodness.
How about that positive?
Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
Amy Chrisman, River Road, 237. Just here to inquire about Pickling Talented. I spoke with Mr. Zara a little bit earlier and trying to, on the elementary school level, get it increased at least to one more time a week. That being brought to everybody's attention because it's been slashed to once a week and it's really just, it's not enough time. It's once a week for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes once they get started. And if they happen, November comes up and if you have it on Thursday and Friday, you're missing it so much. So I would just like that to be thought about, be looked into, find the money to make it happen. Anybody?
Just to fill in the board, we met last Thursday, I think Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
And I wanted to form a committee of parents, which I've asked you to chair, and whoever the president appoints as a board rep, to really explore some options for Pickling and Talented as we build the budget for next year.
So you're saying like for next year to get it for
Well,
twice a week?
two
I'm
things,
saying-
hopefully a stopgap measure this year, and next year when we build our budget, see where we are.
Right, okay. Because I like it for this year.
I know you will.
And then I was just wondering, I had read something in the paper, and I don't know if it's been addressed, about uniforms? Does it talk about uniforms, or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that under old business, but I formed a committee actually that's going to be headed by Dr. Reed and Mr. Kaczynski to investigate school uniforms.
Okay.
That's where we're at. We've had discussions for probably 5 years off and on school uniforms. We've analyzed studies in the past, and Mr. Rogers sent to the board members a packet the other day, which, when we get to that part of the meeting, we'll discuss.
All right, good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Hi.
Okay, seeing that, we'll move to all business, and since Mrs. Kristen brought it up, I spoke to Dr. Reed and Mr. Kaczynski the other day in regard to school uniforms, because since it's been a topic of discussion again, lately, we want to give it its due diligence, and they will provide for this board a complete analysis, or as complete as can be, on both sides of the argument for this board to review. As I've stated on many occasions over the last 5 years, the last time I downloaded studies from the internet, the first 15 studies that I downloaded dealt with urban districts 100%, and the need for uniforms in urban districts based on gang violence and violence in general. And since this board still had many questions after that, I've asked these two gentlemen to volunteer their time and spearhead this investigation and analysis. And I would ask, I know that Mr. Rogers sent us some information the other day, and I would ask him to provide this board with the entire study that he sent this information on, so we can evaluate it its complete presentation. So that's one of the things that we're going to move forward with as a board. So we'll do our due diligence on school uniforms, and I appreciate your volunteering for that committee, Dr. Reed, and the absentia of Mr. Kaczynski. Anyone else for old business right now?
Yes,
Mr. Cook.
thank you. Mrs. Alamo touched on it briefly. The Nutley Educational Foundation, we had a meeting last week, and we talked about a program for parents, and that we would be willing to fund or partially fund such program, but before we could do that, we would want to see some kind of plan what would that program entail, the specifics of it, and with that in hand, then we would consider how much we would fund it. But there would be funding available for a program that is it's going to be a solid program.
And Mr. Sauter and I met last week, and he certainly is very interested in putting together a program along those lines. And we were originally talking about outside funding, perhaps Mountainside Hospital or some other very generous group, but we will come to you also once we get an outline.
Yeah, we have the outline. We can provide the seed money, and then if Mountainside or some other organization would carry down the cost.
Mr. Catchmore mentioned high school parents, and I know there's also a concern at these youngest elementary levels for parents, particularly with help with homework.
Mr. Cook, do you have anything else?
That's all.
Mrs. James, could you speak to the union president's concern about phones on the second floor and why the board needed to table that at the last meeting, please? Because I wanted to understand we are obviously concerned about the safety, not in just this facility, but all facilities. If you could expand on that.
Firstly, to address your question, when we had met originally, we thought that we were simply going to be able to repair one piece of equipment that went down that affected the 24 classrooms in this building. The technology department in-house tried to make the repair. They were unsuccessful. They then sent the piece of equipment to Actress, who is our supplier of NEC equipment. And they did a thorough diagnostic on the piece of equipment and found that it is irreparable. We can't simply just buy a new piece of equipment and install it, because the software level that all of the new pieces of equipment operate on is a 7.0 platform, and we are only at the 3.5 platform. The board chose to table the resolution at the last minute, at the last meeting, wisely so. A lot more investigation had to go into that type of a purchase. And in my investigations into it and trying to look at statute and code with regards to proprietary purchases, the code unfortunately is, proprietary purchases is all over the code. You can't just go to one simple place to find any detailed explanations and information that you need. So I was able to reach out to a colleague who has offered me assistance in developing the bid details, not having ever done a proprietary bid, and it is my obligation to make sure that the district is doing things that are in compliance. The last thing we want to do is to, once again, have the Office of Fiscal Accountability coming to pay us a visit. So that's where we're at. I will have that bid packet ready tomorrow to be advertised, and as soon as we can turn it around at the next board meeting, I'll have it available for the board for approval.
Starting next Monday, the state requirement is you have one fire drill and one lockdown or secure in place drill, either one of those two, per month.
Correct.
Are we going to be able to cover that for November?
Yes,
You're sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to do old business? Yes, Mr. Roy.
Couple of issues, Mr. President.
Sure, Ben.
Just to follow up on this issue we're talking about. And I know we all agree this is a serious safety issue. I'm concerned that there isn't a process, or maybe there is, maybe we need to explore this, to expedite, because it may be termed as an emergent situation, to expedite the repair of this service. I'm concerned that in November we have a lockdown drill. There are certain guidelines from the Attorney General's office, the prosecutor's office, that we have to follow. Now, I'm not going to say that, this telephone system will disrupt this guideline, because frankly, I don't know. But the key here is safety. Is there a way we can expedite this, because it's an emergent situation? and get this resolution passed, even if it's at a special meeting, and get the ball rolling on this.
No, we're doing that as we speak, and we would hope that I believe we determined that there were 4 classrooms, is that correct, Mrs. Aaron?
The only term I've heard is second floor.
Is it, to your knowledge, is it 4 classrooms? I believe that's what we were
Ian will
told.
probably have an exact number of phones for you.
I thought that's what we were told last time. Anyway, I was hoping that we'd be able to, in the short term at least, have walkie-talkies in those classrooms, so we had communications between the staff and the main office, so I don't see, I would hope that would remediate the situation immediately, so that we wouldn't have any kind of situation.
Mr. Clutch, first.
Anything else, Mr. Rock?
You have a plan B. That's good. Yeah, a couple other things. Mr. Zara, can you ensure that the school security officer meets with the tactical commander of the police department for this lockdown? Because under the new guidelines, the police department has to be involved and engaged in this. Secondly,
I would say that that's normal operating procedure.
yeah, it hasn't been in the past.
I think it was, I think if you harken back to the last lockdown we did, I think it worked seamlessly, and we instructed him to do that. I think it worked okay, didn't it? Isn't that what transpired the last lockdown?
I don't believe so. We can check.
I'm sure it did.
I know he did.
With all due respect, because I asked the superintendent, and the superintendent then spoke to Matty Ferrara, is that correct? And he called the chief.
If I recall, that was the.
Because I know that was a bone of
He's
contention.
called a couple of times, and he's...
I will ensure that he does this week.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And he is doing his job diligently.
Who is that individual, the TAC officer?
Captain Sherwell, you can call. Okay. Now, regarding parental involvement, we've heard that 3 or 4 times tonight. Now, getting around the district, I'm hearing from parents a lot about our website, and I know Mr. Cookman and the Technology Committee is working very hard on trying to get a website that would be user-friendly and interactive with parents. So is there any, and I know money's a big issue, believe me, is there any progress in getting to a website that will include grades, interaction with teachers, emails, etc.?
There is actually. I just had a meeting actually Friday night at 8:30 with John Carino, who developed a website for Nutley, for the municipality. And I discussed that exact situation with him, and I discussed that with the superintendent and the VA, because he has submitted a couple of different proposals to the board, and we're trying to do a joint services agreement with the municipality, so we are working on that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. President,
We'll let him finish first, and then we'll...
That's it.
Okay, go ahead.
No, on that, just a follow-up to that point, my understanding is that in the high school and middle school, the parents were given their passwords and that they will get their warning notices through the website, and that the grades will be distributed that way come the end of the first marking period.
Yeah, but I think what Mr. Rogers is referring to...
With the report.
I think that what we're looking at, Mr. Cook, what we're looking at is what our design is to have one website for Nutley. That this is our hope and our plan, where you can go on a Nutley website and click to anything you want to see. You can click to the municipal calendar, you can click to Public Works, you can click to Parks and Rec, you can click to Nutley Board of Education, Washington School, Yannickel School. One seamless website for once and for all. I mean, the technology is here. Why we're not doing it? To have Ian Biemeister working on 8 trillion, he doesn't have the time. We have to move forward as a board and get together with the municipality and have one website where it's controlled, and the people of this town could just get whatever, whether it's a grade, whether it's a homework assignment, whether it's a baseball game for their 8-year-old or a soccer game. I mean, that's where we're going, and that's my hope. So I understand what you're saying in the short term. Ian can do that on the website that we have now, but it's antiquated. We need to move forward and we're working.
Mr. President, one more point.
Yes, sir.
We have a single point of success regarding technology in this school district, and that's Mr. Biemeister. If he disappeared tomorrow, I don't know what we would do, so... And again, I know everything boils down to dollars and cents, but is there a possibility that we can set up a train-to-train program where each school has someone who can do what he's doing now not all of it obviously, but for their particular school. Because I'm serious, if he disappeared, if he got ill, God forbid, if something happened to him, we'd really be in a problem. So we need a plan, a backup plan, to make sure that our system is operational.
So noted. Anyone else?
I have a few things.
Mr. Muscara, please.
One on the security report that I would like to give you tonight. I can't really go in depth to it regarding the reports that I received tonight. The one on the budget analysis and the one on the overall plan from Mr. Reemeister.
Well, why don't you cover what you have and what you
Well,
need?
all I need to say this is that regarding the analysis, I need to talk to the superintendent tomorrow and the VA regarding the figures that are here, and break down some of those figures. Without that, it's impossible to rescue this. Okay? With the other report,
So what specific, back up a second. What exactly are you asking for?
well,
What do you have and what are you missing?
in each of the schools, they list a figure of what was spent to date regarding the equipment, and it's just a blanket figure. So you need a breakdown as far as what the equipment was.
Bless you. I thought we asked for that.
Whether we did or we didn't, we don't have it, but hopefully that we do.
All right, let's do one.
Balances.
Hold on, let's do one element at a time, could you? Bear with me. So we requested a breakdown of all the components that were purchased by this district for each facility for cameras and equipment related to those cameras for security. Is that what you're saying?
More or less.
Okay, so didn't that come on one invoice? Isn't there one invoice that
No.
detailed? Hold on. Because I remember a conversation about a year ago when we received this number. But where's the backup for this? Where's, you know what I'm saying? Do we have an invoice? Yeah.
The information that was provided is a breakdown of the cost of the cameras that we purchased from Integrated Systems on that bid, as well as the access control that was awarded to Open Systems for each individual school. Prior to all.
So let's start with that. So what on this spreadsheet are you looking for that's not here?
All right, let's look at Washington School, $168,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry, expended funds, $160,623. I'd like a breakdown of each school of what that equipment was. Not so much as the cameras, the ISS cameras are self-explanatory, as well as the card access system. But the $168,000, because my issue is this. What we were looking at here is we have a $522,000 surplus, correct? On paper. Because this line item budget has been bounced around over the last year and a half or so, from one figure to another, because my understanding is that the line item is going to be switched from item to item, line to line, school to school, regarding what is needed to fulfill some of the other requests, whether it's overruns or something, which keeps depleting the security process. So I need to, me personally, I just like to have a firm answer on
It's
exactly
a fair question, we'll get that.
what we have there.
You're looking for a software breakdown.
Well, yeah, I mean, I need to go into depth with Mr. Reemeister, that's why I requested through the superintendent. There's certain things I need to gather.
So let me be specific, because it appears that we need to be specific. Could we get a copy of all invoices related to this spreadsheet for Mr. Muscaratola? Yes or no, and how long would it take for him to get that?
Yes, and I can get that for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
The report itself, I'll go over that with the superintendent, but I do have to ask Mr. Reemeister some questions regarding the multi-page report that I got on that as far as what's done. I don't want to lose track of it.
You want to ask those questions now?
No, I can't.
Oh,
I
okay.
really want to read into this to see where I'm at.
Okay.
The other, I kind of want to lose sight of it, but the other issue, which is under old business, is pertaining to policy from Mr. Spizzato regarding Strauss Esme. Strauss Esme, as we all know, is the company that provides us the updates regarding policy. We paid them quite a lot of money several years ago regarding updating the system and so on and so forth. It's kind of fallen off because I've had this conversation numerous times, and I don't know where we're at with this, because the company needs to come back in, reinstall the software, train whoever has to be trained, so this stuff can be done. It's not presently being done that way. Okay? We need to get Strauss Esme in, so that's something I just want to make a request to get that done.
Well, let me ask you a question. We've expended funds to have that done, no?
That's already covered.
All right, so let's ask the board secretary, Mr. Yanes. Are you familiar with what he's speaking to?
No, I was going to ask you specifically, what are you looking for to have updated?
Well, apparently, I've had numerous conversations with Strauss Esme, with the superintendent, regarding the program, because the program, I was told, is not being utilized because it's broke.
Well, let's be more specific. You're referring to the fact that we had requested that all the policies that are in our policy manual be downloaded through software from Strauss Esme, so that all of our policies can be online, so everyone can access the policies instead of going to a voluminous two-book.
Well, they may be partially, but the system goes into much more depth where we could be, excuse me?
Every policy is fully on an index on the website.
It's on a Microsoft Word document. It's not in an Access database like Strauss Esme provides. I've had this conversation, I'm not going to debate this.
Well, let's not debate it. Let me ask you a question. And the reason, well, let me expand on this. The reason why we asked for this, to the best of my knowledge, was because we wanted to be able to revise these policies when there are policy revisions. For example, Mr. Spizzato is probably at the next meeting going to have the first reading of a number of policies.
Quite a few.
Some are mandated, some are optional. And when you look at these policies for the benefit of the public, when the board gets these policies, there's blanks in the policies. And then there's options of what we can apply to the language of the policies. So if these policies are online through the Strauss Esme software, which is what Mr. Mascara is referring to, then we can actually manage the changes in the database. So this is what we asked for. So I guess to be specific, what you're asking is if we invested the money,
We did.
then why hasn't it been done?
I can't answer that question. All I know is I spoke to the company at the superintendent's request.
All right, let me
back and forth with that.
let the superintendent answer.
So they have to handle that as far as they know, let us see what we're
My understanding is it's a compatibility issue with how they format the documents and how we format them.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It's that the software that they're supposed to run for this operation is not being run. Okay?
All right, so I would ask then that since it falls under the domain of the board secretary and it's our department, that you call Strauss Esme tomorrow, please, and find out how we come to resolution of this issue so that we can manage the software, manage the upgrades and the policies in a better fashion. If in fact we pay for the software and it's not being used, that becomes problematic.
It goes much greater because it allows the access by the number of people that it's like buying the software, so we have access, maybe 10 or 12 people have access to it. There's a master policy book that never gets touched, and all the applications that you want to put on it, the changes are there, you upload it and download it and result.
Understood.
To me, you're behind me.
No, I'm talking to you.
Understood. So get to that tomorrow. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Mascara?
Regarding that, just one more regarding the phone system. I know that we tabled it, and I know it was because it's proprietary, and we talked about, we have to go out to bid, correct? So have we spoken to council regarding any, in the Tuesday statute, discretion? Is there any discretion regarding the bidding portion of it that we're allowed to do under a merger basis
situation?
And we don't have council here tonight, but maybe has council been asked that question? Can we expedite the bidding process because it's an emergent matter to do what we need to do? Because are we going to do what we're going to do? Is that the first question? Are we going to do that? If we're going to do it, how do we get it? How fast do we get it? Now, just one other question regarding the overall security project. Regarding some developments that I talked about, that the grant was denied and waited to hear as to why, and if we can reapply supply and so on and so forth. It's still, that's why I'm so bent on the fact with the analysis of this.
Just to back up, because probably nobody in the room understood what you just said, with all due respect.
Regarding
You're
the grant?
referring to the grant that was just,
We
that
applied
we
for a
did not
Save Our School
receive.
grant,
in-
Secure Our School grant a while back. I did discuss it at the last meeting.
Right.
It was denied. It was denied. We don't know the reason why.
Not that it was denied, we didn't receive the,
No, it was, we were denied the grant. If you want to look at it, well, how do you want to put it?
We weren't awarded the grant.
We were not awarded the grant. Okay, so the bottom line, we didn't get the money. But there are some things that we're looking into. And what I wanted to tie into is what you said about the web design.
okay,
Mr. Viemeister, Mr. Kirk, and myself have been trying to get together. We've been doing a lot of phone
Gentlemen.
conversations regarding still utilizing funds with the town and ourselves to hook up the dark fiber from public safety to the town hall, to the library, to the high school, which will eliminate a lot of costs.
Mhm.
And I still, hopefully, will allow us to do what we want to do futuristically with that system.
I'd certainly request that you sit down with Mr. Cook, since he's a finance chair, and give him that analysis and evaluation of the cost, so
As soon as
that
I get this
you
done,
can talk
then I
about the
can
budget.
talk.
Understood.
Thank you for your
Anything
time.
else? Anyone else on old business? Mr. Sauter?
Quick question, how is our school that we have developed with Belleville and Bloomfield working out?
The school is in place, and we have students, as I mentioned, who are, and they cannot be special education students, regular ed students who have significant issues. They certainly can be placed in that setting. At this point, as of October 25th, there was no, fortunately. And I think that's part of Mr. Riley's intention of meeting with the presidents of the Belleville and Bloomfield board, as well as the two superintendents, to expand those services, whatever they may be.
Anyone else on old business? I have a meeting tomorrow with Assemblyman Scalera in regards to the concussion program that I discussed a few weeks ago. And it's interesting because since that discussion 2 weeks ago, we actually had a child the other day who received a concussion in football practice. So it's time to move forward with that, and hopefully we can tomorrow. And we discussed the harassment policy and bullying policy, and I commend you for having your programs. I know we've had those programs at other schools this year so far, elementary schools. Listen, we can't bury our head in the sand. It's an ongoing problem. It's a serious problem. This board takes it seriously, and unfortunately, there are issues like this on the playground probably every day, and we try to minimize and try to keep as close an eye on it as we can for the safety of the kids. You spoke about the drug policy and the drug testing, and we appreciate that report, and I just want to reiterate that it's not a punitive policy, it's a rehabilitative policy, and that's why these two people you referred to earlier that tested positive, they're in a rehabilitative program at this time, right? And they have to be retested again when? Within 30 days, I think?
Periodically.
But within 30 days the first time, and then periodically. Is
Yes.
that correct?
First, they meet with the SAC within the first week of their suspension.
Right.
But prior to the meeting with the SAC, they have to get a complete medical evaluation, and they have to submit another urine screen.
Okay.
They will meet with the SAC, they'll discuss their early intervention program. They'll be in a program, they don't have to be in the exact same program, and their urine screenings will take place periodically. Each facility has their own regimen. If you test positive a second time, it's a 30-day suspension from your extracurricular activities in athletics. If you test a third time positive, then you're suspended for 1 year, and then there's another protocol that involves probably more than just outpatient, possibly something a little more drastic. And right now, where are we in the whole process? This is late developing. We've had the second screen. We haven't had the results returned to us yet. and they will be receiving a call from the SAC either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Appreciate it. Any old business?
Quick question, just I have a question for Principal Catcherville. With Lisa Cassillo, we just approved the resolution tonight. She's going on maternity leave. Will Joe Capella be filling that void?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe Capella's moving between buildings, as he's done before.
Okay, thank you.
And how long do you expect that to take place? How long should be out?
She mentions returning sometime between January and February.
Like March 7th, the actual date?
She called me today.
I'd be extremely concerned that someone would be able to carry that load for 5 months for 2,100 students. How does that happen?
He did it once before when Lisa was out.
I'm not saying he didn't do it, but
Yeah.
is it efficient? Is it? I mean, how does one person cover 2,100 kids?
It's challenging.
Do you have any other ideas?
He's got to move between buildings,
No, but
what if there's an emergency at the middle school?
That
At the same time, we have
I
one.
clearly understand, but I'd prefer to have somebody else if we could.
We can look into.
5 months is half a school year, it just
We
doesn't
can
make
look
any
into
sense.
perhaps an interim.
Let's look into that, please, because I'm concerned that that's way too long a period of time to have one person covering 2 schools of that size. Yes, Mr. Sawyer.
Since we brought up the topic of bullying, and I know that the legislature is dealing with that now.
Correct.
Are we going to have a definition of bullying, and are we going to have to provide it, or is it going to be provided by the state?
It's in
How
our
do you
policy.
define this?
It's in our policy.
Well, how is it defined? Would you remind me?
Well, you gotta read the policy, it's about 12 pages long. But, you know, I think that a lot of, I'll say this, because I was involved a few years ago in the revision of that policy, where we actually changed the policy to include events that happen outside the school. Back 5 years ago, somebody had to be harassed in the school. Now they can go on a trip to Ohio or Denver or Las Vegas or San Francisco or California, wherever. And if it happens, this is Dr. Russo, did you have a question? Okay. If it happens outside the school grounds, it's also a violation of the policy. So it's been expanded outside the school district. And I think that there's been this ambiguity in the past where maybe some staff felt like some stuff was a gray area. And I think it's better, I think what we've learned, it's better to err on the side of caution. If somebody's being bullied or picked on in the schoolyard, and we're aware of it, I think that that's a concern. I think that it happens more often than we know, and when they catch it, the staff catches it, they address it immediately regardless of what the situation is. Because there's so many areas, you can call them a name, call them ugly, call them fat, call them whatever. And ultimately, that's bullying, that's a form of harassment.
Well, so it's very subjective.
I would say there's some areas that are subjective, yeah, but I think that there's more of an acute sense of awareness today than ever before, and I believe that our staff, through the educational process, errs on the side of caution. Is that accurate, Mr. Catchbone?
Yes.
Since it's under your domain and your facility?
That is accurate.
Do you catch everything? Of course not. But if you see somebody push somebody in the hallway, that's bullying. If you hear somebody call somebody a fat pig, that's bullying, that's harassment, that should not be tolerated, and that falls under our policy, if that's what your question is.
With cyberbullying, it's 24/7.
Yeah, now it's on the internet, as we discussed earlier, Facebook and everything else.
The problem I see, and I don't know how you would deal with it, but you put people in the position of not reporting it, and then being accused of not reporting it, or reporting it and being accused of actually harassing the people that are being harassed by reporting it, you know what I mean? It's a problem.
But I think that's why, as board members, we don't micromanage that. As board members, we rely on the superintendent to instruct the staff to enforce the policy. We only make the policy, and we make sure the policy's adhered to. We don't micromanage it or tell Mr. Catcherbone what he should do, or Mr. Colicchio what he should do. That's up to them as professionals and administrators, and that's what we bang for ultimately. Yes, Mr.
Just on a note with that, I know through experience with Mr. Catherine and the staff, is that the staff knows they're criminally and civilly immune from any prosecution in doing things like that. So that has given them the go-ahead to be a little bit more proactive, which they desperately need, because it's something that I was very big on, making sure that they know that they're civilly and criminally immune from any form of prosecution. So, in all due respect, it doesn't say that they become the harasser over the person being harassed. You know, that's their
But
job.
I understand this point.
Well, I didn't say that they would be prosecuted for it, but I say that they might be accused of.
They could be,
doing that, you know.
anybody can be accused of anything,
Well,
but they need to know that
that's-
we're behind them, the
that's
policy's
true.
behind them, law enforcement is behind them, for them to do their job, so we can do ours.
Fair enough. Mr. Strazano.
Just on Walt's comment, me and Mr. Rogers did sit with the assembly, with the law writers, a couple advocates regarding the law that they're talking about. So we had a good conversation. And I believe that once this is handled, or how they go about it, we probably will be changing policy. There probably will be some more added into, I would say, I don't want to say punishment, but there will be levels of degrees of what happens, step one, strike one, strike two, and strike three.
So they will have more defined definitions.
There will definitely be more refined, and this is just the beginning state. The goal that.
But the more defined what it falls under, or more defined
Defined on
under
the actual
penalties?
punishment and
Well,
penalties.
that's not what was asked.
Well, I'm gonna go deeper with you on it, because something that they don't have, they explained to us that the sexual harassment for judges down in Essex County, they have a book, a huge book on a specific cases, situations that a judge can go and review. They have just about nothing on bullying. That's going to take a long time before they can do it. They are working towards that, to get some type of guidelines for judges, so that when there is situations and they're sent down to the county, a judge has something to go on. Right now, they don't. So they don't base it on how it's being handled. So we sat in that meeting, and it's a big, long process, and there's a lot involved. It's not that simple.
Anyone else on old business? New business? Seeing no motion to adjourn. Second. Mr. Strazano, all in favor?